here and ready to get rocking.
The glass of wine. So a
Yeah.
toast to you. Let's raise our glass. There we go. We're both having Chardonnays. Yep, we talked about that earlier.
And
We
which
like
I love. This is a first for me. You're taking my virginity for consuming an alcoholic beverage
on air.
on
I
air.
love it.
So,
I like having firsts, so
oh.
I'm glad this is your first. Um, so what you and I are going to do is you're going to tell us, the audience, in the greater world out there, your reinvention story for about 5 minutes. I'll time you, and then I'm going to ask you some questions because I've got lots of them. And you sip that wine whenever you want to.
Yes. Wow.
So, what
All
we're
right.
going to do is just, I'll turn the floor over to you now so you can start and tell everybody about yourself.
Awesome. So again, my name's Tanner Gers, and all-American kid growing up. Uh, you know, excelled in school and sports, and really was kind of bored with school. And I ended up dropping out of college, really trying to figure out what I was going to do with myself, and realized that it was time to grow up and I needed to get out of Dodge. So I was enlisting into the military. And well deep into that process, I lost control of my car and was in a terrible auto accident where ultimately a tree came through my windshield, impaling me in the face, and tore off a good chunk of my face, as you can see, and my eye was blown from the socket. And this is actually all kind of implant and skin grafts over here to the left. And you can see my brain, it was exposed to the air. And because of that, there was a lot of medical issues that I dealt with for about another 2 years. But quickly, I changed my perspective after some words of wisdom, and got after it. I realized that I still have skills, I still have talent, I still have thoughts, I can control them, and it's up to me to control my behaviors and create the life that I want to live. If I'm going to be remembered, then I better do something worth remembering. And so I went after it within, let's see, June, July. Yeah, so within like 2 months, maybe two months and a couple of weeks of me going home from the hospital, I was enrolled in college and um, did that and got really motivated. Um, was working full time, going to school full time. One night, found out about Sports for the Blind on the television, started doing that. So reinvented myself there. And when I thought that that part of my life was over, and had a lot of success, ended up becoming a US Paralympian. And from there, really I was pulled in by health and fitness and dove deep there and started a business, absolutely lean, and started consulting. I was producing products. I wrote a book and programs, exercise programs, and was consulting on top of that, and finally broke out into that space and was doing well, consulting people and having a great time doing that, really just getting down to servicing others and helping them live the life that they want to live. And now going through it again, where I am helping a little bit of a different niche, still operating and managing my health and fitness business, but also too helping others, find success in their life through creativity, through coaching, through mentoring, and just delivering the messages and ideas that they may need to hear today so that they can create success in their life right now.
Mm-hmm. Tanner, I mean, you, obviously, I didn't give you a lot of time to get that all out, but you sort of gloss over things that I think other people might have found insurmountable. So let's go back to some of that. First of all, you said that you received some sage words of wisdom in the hospital while you were sort of processing what had happened to you, and that gave you pause to change your perspective. So, who gave you those sage words of wisdom, and how did you change your perspective?
Yeah, well, I actually wasn't in the hospital. I don't even recall being in the hospital. I remember waking up totally blind in the traumatic brain injury unit of a step down clinic, a rehabilitation hospital. And, but fast forwarding to those words, I was at home living with my parents, obviously recovering still, and just, it was doctor's appointment after doctor's appointment, piles of medication, at home IVs, and I was a bag of bones, and I was hunched over because I could barely hold my body up. Right now, as I'm sitting here today, I'm between 5'8", 5'9", 185 pounds, and at that time, I was 130 pounds. So I could barely hold myself up, and my dad came around the corner and he told me, "Chin up." And I would normally respond to that, but I didn't. And so he knew something was wrong. And he came and he sat down next to me and he said, "Tanner, what's wrong? What can I do to help?" I said, "Dad, I'm blind. There's nothing you can do to help me. My life is meaningless. My life is hopeless. My life is worthless. There's nothing you can do about it." And he said, "You know what, Tanner, that is not the attitude that you need to have, because you could be blind and you should be in a wheelchair. You could be blind in a wheelchair and mentally you should be a vegetable. Tanner, really, you should be dead." And that was the wake up call. That was the paradigm shift, the perspective I needed to realize, hey, like, I still have these. What am I going to do with them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it was Dad.
Yeah, it was Dad.
Were you close with your dad prior to your accident?
No, not really. Really close with my mom, or more, I should say, more close with my mom. And then, as a result of the accident, my mom became my best friend. I mean, we became so close. We're still close, and we mentor each other, we help each other, and I've known her longer than I've known anybody else, so might as well make good friends with them.
So that's interesting. Have you since gotten a better appreciation of your parents?
Well, certainly. So, I mean, I had actually gotten some coaching, some therapy last year, a little bit over a year ago, because I was really feeling like there was this thing. There was this. I knew I had this problem. I didn't know what it was, and this therapist helped me realize that it had to do with a relationship with my father. I mean, he knew it. The therapist knew it, but I didn't know it. And then so he helped me come to realize that, and helped me also come to realize that, every experience I have in life is a direct result of him. And so whether you have a father or you don't, you should be grateful for your father, because they're the reason why you're here today. So basically saying that every success that I've ever had in my life, I owe to him. And I'm grateful for that, for just the opportunity to step up to the plate, let alone whether I strike out or I hit a home run, but just having the opportunity to step up to the plate, for that, I'm grateful.
Mm-hmm. And fast forwarding a little bit more in your story, you said, you went back to college, you were working while you were at college.
Yeah.
What did you do? What work did you do?
I was actually working at a call center at the time. So I was doing, and this really fed well into my later reinvention for health and fitness. I was in multiple departments, but I was working for a company that was contracted by a major health insurance company. And this was back when Medicare Part D was becoming available. So I was in the sales department, I was in customer service, and I was in enrollment for Medicare Part D prescription drug programs. And I would speak with these, mostly elderly individuals who were on Medicare and on a ton of prescriptions, and just getting to know these people and why they were on their prescriptions and how they were helping them.
Cool. And did you decide to go and get that job? Did you get it because you wanted to occupy yourself? Did you get it to help you pay for school? I mean, uh, tell me about that.
So I've always been an independent person, and I've always liked sales. I mean, I'm not a salesy type of person. I like making sales. I like showing people opportunities and giving them all the information they need to make a decision. Whatever the decision is, that's their decision, whatever. But I really embrace that whole experience. But I didn't know that going into the job. And I wanted more than what Social Security disability was providing me. And so I sought gainful employment. And, I didn't mention, but on top of, while I was in school and while I was working, I started 2 other businesses. I had started a mobile food kitchen, taco truck or hot dog stand type of thing. And it was called the Curbside Grill. And, and which is, that puts any perspective on how ballsy I
mean, like, I'm sitting here shaking my head because I don't even know how mobile grill, hot food behind a steering wheel. Not really sure how that worked, but
right. Yeah. So, well, I was definitely the one calling the shots. I wasn't the one working the shot. I wasn't the one pulling the trigger.
Gotcha.
So, so my wife would drive the Curbside Grill, and she would also be doing the cooking. Now, so gosh, like memories. So I worked at this call center, right? And at call centers, typically you get 3 breaks in an 8-hour shift: a 15-minute, a 30-minute lunch, and a 15-minute break. And unfortunately, many people working in call centers are not the healthiest of individuals. They're probably looking for a snack. Definitely didn't bring their lunch. And the majority. And so I thought, what a great business opportunity for us to have a mobile kitchen outside the place that I work. And so that's what we did.
Oh, gosh. Well, so I don't even know if I want to ask you the question, do you think, what do you think that reinvention is for everyone? But I'll put it out there.
Well, I think that most people are always reinventing themselves. Unless you have condemned yourself to the lazy boy in daytime television, then you're probably like me, and you're probably a growth-seeking being. The thing that I have found so interesting in my life is that no matter what it seems like, no matter what success or achievement I put a notch in my belt with, I'm always looking for the next thing. And that's because the only real time that we have is right now. And so that's why we're always looking for something new.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why everybody in this call is, probably in the midst of some reinvention. Maybe that's right at the beginning. Maybe it's knee deep. And maybe they are in the moment right now where they are embodied their entire reinvention, and they're just living it to the fullest. But maybe one day, whether it's retirement or it's they have a new child or they get a divorce or something happens in your life and things change. And if your inability to reinvent yourself is pretty much setting yourself up for a tough experience thereafter. So I think we're all capable of reinvention. I think reinvention is a choice. And
that's my tagline. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Well, and everything's a choice, right? And so it's what's your ability to change in certain situations? It's like for me, as people have told me that you're an oddity, you're a rarity, for people to change as well and as quick as you did. And I've been changing my whole life. So for me to adapt and change to this situation, and again, it's not a problem. It's just a situation. For me to adapt and change within this situation, it's just it was just another chapter.
Before your accident, were you as fearless? Were you know, you mentioned that you were independent, but were you as fearless? Were you as adaptable? Or do you think that the necessity to, you know, um, adapt at such a greater by such a greater means now has changed?
I was always, well, so this is what I meant. The story behind that is that we were always moving. Before, when I moved to Tucson with my family, this was in the middle of eighth grade, over Christmas break of eighth grade year. And prior to that, uh, I was born in Louisiana, lived there several times, lived a couple different places in Florida, Mobile, Alabama, Anaheim, California, Houston, Texas, and then finally moving to Tucson, Arizona, and multiple schools, within that time frame. And that was all before I entered high school. So I was always the new kid. I was always adapting to new situations. In addition to that, I always had this sense of, how can I make something better? What can I do? My mom likes to tell the story of when I was on the math decathlon team as a kid in elementary school. And I really hated showing my work. So I would get B's in math, but I was on the math decathlon team. So, and I came up with this thing called Tanner's rule. And so the teacher had given like this problem, or this like equation to solve this problem. And I was like, I didn't really like that. And I thought it could be improved. And so I literally, I came up with a different equation that I thought was better. And she, she named it Tanner's rule.
Oh boy, I bet you were hellion.
I was not the quiet kid in the corner.
During your whole reinvention journey, how has support factored in? You mentioned about your parents, but what else? Who else?
Yeah, support is huge. I mean, it began with them, but coaching and mentoring, the support team that you bring in, the information that you bring into and surround yourself with, is so important. I can't tell you how much it's affected me. Thinking about my health and fitness reinvention, I was so grateful to be living at the Olympic Training Center in Chula Vista, California. And I, like many athletes there, were suffering from chronic injuries. And other athletes were working with other issues, whether it was amenorrhea or, a testosterone deficiency, or it was chronic sleep deprivation, or, like me, a chronic injury. And so getting to know everybody in the sports med department, I mean, just phenomenal people, where it's like, holy moly, like they're so intelligent, they're so smart, they're so capable. And it's almost like, why are you here? It's like, they're here because they're doing what they love. And I fell in love with that. And I wanted to help people with their minds and their bodies. And that's what was the beginning of the reinvention for Absolutely Lean and my health and fitness programs and business. So, yeah. So, I mean, having a coach, having a mentor, having somebody that you can reach out to and connect with, someone that can help give you guidance, has been hugely beneficial to me. I know it has been to a lot of people listening to this. And if you're not getting coaching or mentoring, or maybe you're afraid, maybe start with a book, and absorb some information, because you have got to master the basics. This is something that I reinforce constantly. And when you master the basics, that's really what sets you up with the lexicon, with the understanding, and the ability to step up to the table and begin to receive, understand, comprehend, and interact with advanced topics that are being discussed by this coach or this mentor. You're going to be hard pressed to take it to the next level without a coach or a mentor. And why recreate the wheel? Find someone who's done what you want to do and put your own flavor on it, put your own twist on it, and, reach out to them.
Mm-hmm. And what else? I mean, your case is obviously even more amplified by, let's say, tools and technology and other resources besides the one-on-one human being.
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about those in the context of your reinvention?
Definitely. They facilitate it. They facilitate my ability to, communicate like you and I did before we hopped on Zoom. And for me to read your emails, to compose emails, for me to get on the internet and, Internet Explorer stalk you, to get on Facebook and to connect on social media channels, so they are a necessary medium that I must use and rely on in order for me to have that impact that I'm creating. So I don't believe that I would be able to have the impact that I have, at least using the avenues that I'm going down, if it wasn't for technology. Yes, I'm a professional speaker and I love getting in front of audiences, but I can only get on stage so many times, right? And so technology has allowed me to create my own stage whenever I want.
Do you think the same applies regardless of somebody's impairment?
Say that again, please.
Do you think the same applies regardless of if someone has an impairment or not? In other words, should everybody be looking at technology as an imperative?
Well, I think in today's world, if you're not on technology, you should probably look into it. And if, it's kind of like the reinvention thing, where situations are going to change in your life and situations are going to change in the world around you. It's up to us to adapt to them and find out where we fit. And if we don't find a place, then we better make one and step into that. But with the way technology is increasing right now, we had this conversation earlier where I lost my sight in a world where people just called. There was text messaging was just kind of like in its infancy, where it was like, ugh, what is that? Texting? Ugh. Like, just call somebody. And now it's kind of flip-flopped, right? Where it's, who is this person calling me? Who are they to think they can just call me? And so, the roles have switched. And I think that, again, if you're not on technology, you'd be doing yourself a disservice by not figuring something out.
Right. Let's talk about some of the most successful aspects of your reinvention and the most challenging and or worst mistakes and failures.
Yeah.
Which one would you like to start with first?
So I think that it's so interesting how closely related they are, the failure and the success. So the failure was recognized when we got to take note of these things, right? We got to be aware of them and figure out why they happened. So when I published my first book, I was shocked that like my mom was the only one downloading it and leaving it with me. And I was like, geez, like this book is awesome. Like I know this book will help so many people. It's entertaining. It's a page turner. And that's not just like my baby. I'm not just saying that because that's my baby. That's the book that I wrote. But I wrote it with that in mind, is that this will be helpful. This will be informative, but most importantly, this is like our conversation right now. This is conversational. This is engaging. Will hold your attention. So I published this book and it just flopped. It fell right on its face. Like, the sales are meager. And I was so frustrated because I didn't understand why. I was like, man, why? Why is this happening? And that's the wrong question you need to be asking, is like, why? The question you need to be asking is what? And what can I learn from this? And what I learned is that it doesn't matter how amazing your book is. Because I've seen some bestseller books. I've read some bestselling books. They sucked. I'm like, how is this book a bestseller book? And it's because it doesn't matter how good or bad your thing is. If no one knows about it, no one knows about it. And if they don't know about it, they can't buy it. So that was the thing that I learned. And so moving forward to the biggest successes that I had was when I actually got out and started going to give speeches and talks on health and nutrition at gyms, at a college, putting videos online on YouTube. And my most successful client to date, my most successful meaning the most profitable client that I've had, she was a monthly client that I had ongoing, and she found me on YouTube. She went to my site, reached out to me, and I responded. We ended up hopping on the line, chatting over Skype. And, she asked me, she goes, how much is this going to cost? And I kept like beating around the bush. Like, I just want to help you. And then I'm going to move on, because I was right in the middle of a launch for something else that was not absolutely lean related, not my health and fitness business related. And so I just wanted to help her because I felt that was what I needed to do. I felt that was the right thing to do. And because I had got out there and started putting my stuff online, videos, because I got out there and started speaking, she found me. And she ended up being a very, very, it was very fortuitous for me to feel like I needed to fulfill my obligation and then doing so. So, making sure that people know that you're out there and know that you're offering what you have to offer was my biggest success. It led to it. And not doing it led to my biggest failure.
Interesting. We have time for about one more question before we open up the floor. So let me break this down. If you could give somebody who is thinking about reinventing but hasn't yet started 3 specific pieces of advice to put into action right away, what would they be?
Okay. So again, I'm really about the basics. So we can go into deeper ones if you wish, but number 1 is forgive yourself for not starting. Number 2 is believe that you can start, you will start, and once you do start, you'll be successful as long as you're doing what you love to do. Believe in yourself. And number 3 is to take action. And you can start doing that by learning everything you need to know right now to move the ball forward as much as possible. So pick one thing right now, pick one thing and take aggressive action on that. And the one thing should be what will move the ball further down the field than anything else. So, if you want an effective strategy for that. For me, it was getting on YouTube and getting those videos out there. I didn't realize how effective that would be in terms of bringing people to me. I didn't realize how having those videos on YouTube would provide me notoriety when I'm speaking with somebody one-on-one. Maybe it's sales. Maybe you need to understand how to communicate with people and read people and provide them the information that they need so they can make a decision. And maybe it's just that you need to get started. So if you're in a service-based business, like you're a massage therapist or something like that, take the leap and invest in yourself. And when you begin to invest in yourself, for me at least, when I've invested in myself, like when I hired a virtual assistant, it took my game to the next level. It was like, man, I'm paying money to have this person work for me. I better rise up and take it to the next level. And that really helped me in my business. So, you may need to start small, and I recommend starting small. But number 1 is forgive yourself for not starting right now, for not already starting. Number 2 is believe yourself right now. Figure out something you love. And then number 3, take action on it. Figure out the one thing that's going to move you furthest down the field possible and just be aggressive with it. Just get after it.
Fabulous. Great pieces of advice. So let me open the floor up to Q&A. We have one that was already submitted. How do you like that?
Woo woo.
So if you hadn't had your accident, where do you think you would be in your career now?
That is a great question. So I would imagine when I enlisted in the military, I was enlisting to be an air traffic controller. And air traffic controllers at a commercial level in the non-governmental sector, they do pretty well for themselves. And it's pretty much a six-figure income right out the gates. So I would have been, in my mid-20s, making 100K a year and, working 40 hours a week. I would have probably been comfortable doing that. I always had not an obsession, but an intense attraction to real estate. So I would imagine that I'd be doing the air traffic controlling Monday to Friday and my real estate business on the weekends, and just investing and reinvesting my money to build my empire.
Aha, an empire builder he is. And so I must ask, are you still competing at the Paralympian level?
Oh yeah, that was kind of the basis of my most recent reinvention. I had one of the things that can make us take action, or let me back up. So one of the things that can prevent us from taking action is fear. And that gets back to not believing in myself. And as much as I've accomplished, even I still struggle with this from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
Personal development is an ongoing journey. So I knew that I wanted to do this podcast, but I was so afraid of, like, what if people don't like it? What if, this, that, and the other thing? What if it just falls? And it's like, so what? Like, who cares what anybody else thinks? Like, as long as I impact one other person, then if I can make one other person change their life for the better, and in turn they impact somebody else, that's a domino effect. And so what happened is my first track practice this year is February 12th, Saturday, running down the track. And when you understand some simple math, you can estimate how fast one is running. And so I was running 100-meter repeats in, between 13 and 13 and a half seconds, which at an average miles per hour is about 17 average. So at the time, at midway down the track, I was probably running about 19 miles an hour when I ran into a fence post.
Ouch.
Yeah. And so I broke bones in my foot, my kneecap, broke ribs. I was cut up. I have scars now on my chest and on my arm. And I was so grateful. This is a big year, 2016, Rio de Janeiro, Paralympics and Olympics. And, trials are coming up in like less than 90 days. So in the moment, I was so pissed. I was so flippin' pissed. And then I realized, man, this isn't going to get me where I need to go. I need to really focus on health and recovery. And then when I got in the car on the way home, I told my wife, I said, this is it. I got to start the podcast. And she goes, why? Where is this coming from? I said, I almost lost the thing that I love so much from the bottom of my heart, the ability to express myself physically. When I lost my sight, I thought I'd lost that forever. And today, I almost did. 1 inch to the left, 1 inch to the right. That post was a little taller. That should have been a career-ending injury. 19 miles an hour, 185 pounds, flying into a galvanized post that does not bend. I'm lucky to just have some broken bones. And I have something to say. I have a message that needs to be told, and people need to hear it. It's time. And so that's the longest possible way of answering yes, I'm still competing.
You're still competing. And in addition, you've taken on yet another responsibility that is producing your podcast. But
Well, why the hell not?
why the hell not?
No, I'm just kidding. Some people, I think I've suffered from this. I know people personally that have suffered from this. Sometimes you have to say no, ladies and gentlemen, and you have to say no in very tough situations. That might be your family, that might be your friends, and I had to say no a lot before I was a Paralympian. When I was building up to London, and I would say like this right here, like I would say no to.
Sure.
And because
90 days away, you might start saying no soon.
Well, you've got to meet, and if you saw, so just a couple sips, and especially when you understand about how alcohol has an influence on your hormones, yeah, but it's all about meeting people where they're at. It's all about helping people realize the potential that they have to succeed that's inside them, and taking action towards that. And if a half a glass of wine is going to help me have an impact, then a half a glass of wine is what I need to
drink. Good justification. I like it. So, in terms of the idea of when you're struggling, and the best thing to do is to invest in yourself.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are struggling at a time when they don't feel like they really can afford to invest in themselves. How do you propose that they reconcile that?
Well, so it depends, I guess, on, and I don't like this word, but it's going to resonate with people, but it really just depends on how bad do you want it. I don't like that word want because it's so repelling for me, in my experience, because to want something means to lack something. So, how bad do you lack it? But, if you feel like you're so tied down, like that your credit card debt is so deep and thick that you can't even make the minimum payments, and your credit card balances are going up because of that fact, because you're eating ramen and rice, because that you maybe go hungry, so that your kids can eat. If you're talking about like that, if you're talking about like missing rent, electricity getting turned off, if you're talking that you don't have money like that, then that's a different issue. But everybody on this call right now has internet, and that's an investment in yourself. That's an opportunity to get on Google, and there's so many, and you go to your library, sitting in the library and reading a book, that's free.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing it costs is your time. And
most libraries have internet these days.
And most libraries have internet these days. So it really gets down to, do you believe it? Are you willing to invest in yourself? And it doesn't mean, just because you invest yourself, just because you give everything doesn't mean you're going to win. And after London, I moved to Park City, Utah. I love alpine skiing. I love snow skiing. And I had this dream of being a blind Paralympian in both the winter and the summer games. And I couldn't think of a sport better to do that than downhill alpine skiing. And I had my life savings, just over, about 5 figures that I invested in this season, this chance, this opportunity to make the U.S. Paralympic team for the 2014 games in Sochi. And it didn't happen. And things were tight after that. I put money on my credit cards, my entire savings was gone. And will I ski again? I'm sure I will. Did that stop me from moving forward and taking action? Absolutely not. It could always be worse. So, like the words my dad says, it could always be worse. When you realize that right there, when you have that one perspective, it could always be worse, then doesn't that get you motivated about how awesome you have it right now?
Mm-hmm. Well, I know I could talk to you for another whole hour, Tanner, but we are up against the clock here. So, first of all, thank you so, so, so much for being my guest and for sharing your story and for being inspirational in so many ways and bringing this energy to our conversation. I'm
Absolutely.
gonna I'm gonna share my screen again so people can find out how to get a hold of you.
Thank you.
And obviously, I want to just, Tanner, what's on the screen right now is my slide that says reinvention is a choice.
Yeah.
To remind everybody that, you can just let life take you where it will, or you can choose to create your next future. And so that's what I'm trying to create with Reinvention Works. And how everybody can get in touch with you is that you have given us your email, creativesuccess@cox.net, your website, which is www.thecreativesuccess.com, and on Twitter, which is at Tanner Gers. Gers is spelled Gers.
Yeah,
So,
it's actually creativesuccessshow.com.
oh, creativesuccessshow.com. Okay. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Um,
But I am most active on Twitter. Anybody can reach me there.
Anybody can, and I can attest to that. Tanner, is there anything else that you want to let everybody know that you are doing? Are you going to be appearing anyplace soon, or do you have anything going on you want to just fill the audience in about real quickly?
My schedule. So I'm going to be in Chicago a couple times this summer. I'm going to be in North Carolina this summer. I'm going to be getting out to California this summer. I live in Phoenix, and I only know where else I'm going to be within up until Rio de Janeiro, where I plan and intend on being at the Paralympic Games in 2016. I'll probably be at the White House after that, getting to meet Mr. Obama for the second time, which is pretty cool. And that's
That's a pretty decent agenda there. So we can look for you at the Rio de Janeiro Olympics. We can cheer you on. We can know a name in the crowd. That would be really cool. Hey,
yeah.
we talked to him. We saw him. That's so awesome. So, Tanner, thank you so much again. I really appreciate your being here. And everybody, coming up next week, I'm not sure what we're going to do. If we're going to have a guest or we're going to have, maybe I'll take us over to Blab. As Tanner said, try this new technology stuff. It's kind of an imperative. So I hope that you join me. And otherwise, Tanner, thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording for us all in one fell swoop. So we're going to call it a night. And everybody, take care now. We'll see you next week. Bye.